It is the most magical Grand Prix of the year. The rumor mill is going crazy because nobody had anything to talk about after the Emilia-Romagna cancellation. McLaren have got a new look. Can Red Bull be beaten? And Gary Formato is here. Let's go racing.
They exist in a world beyond ours. This is Formula One.
It is a very good evening and welcome to the LGR F1 Show live from our bespoke Suzuki Pop-up Store in the Menlyn Shopping Centre. This weekend, of course, we look forward to the jewel of the Formula One crown. I think I've been saying that for the last 30 years. It is Monaco. And look who's next to me, the one and only Gary Formato. Gary, it's been a minute, eh?
It has indeed. Yeah, geez,
Feels
the
like
time,
old days.
It does feel like the old days. Beautiful set, beautiful place. Yeah,
Yeah.
This is getting good.
And Monaco,
Yeah, absolutely.
just special.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, I think all those, every year you'd hear, should F1 cars be at Monaco and all that. I mean, I think that's just been parked now. I think everybody knows what it's about. It's just something unbelievable.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll get into talking about Monaco and what it actually means. Don't forget, we'd like to get your comments. So get in touch with us on the YouTube channel. Otherwise, get in touch with us on Facebook. There we go. The number is on your screen. Read it yourself. I'm sure you'll get there. Gary, Red Bull. They've been phenomenal this year, even last year,
Yeah.
the latter part of last year. And it's not just Max, it's both of them. I mean, these guys have got a car. It reminds me of the sort of Schumacher era when Barrichello, Massa, or Irvine had a car that was so good that they could even challenge their teammate.
Exactly. I think you hit the nail on the head there. It's exactly the comparison I've been using as well. I mean, Checo has come out firing this year, and actually giving Max something to think about. Look, I think Max is still a couple of steps ahead, but there's no doubt Checo is the best season he's ever going to probably have in Formula One. But the one thing that I do think where Formula One has really got, with the new rules now, is they're going to not get that amount of wind tunnel time and development time that everybody else is going to get. And I think, the intention was to obviously close up the field, but the field's quite close already. Yes, they're out in front, but the time to the back of the grid is not as big as it was. So I'd like to see if these rules are actually going to start to do what they were intended to do and allow the rest of the field to start catching up.
So we didn't have last weekend at Imola, and clearly that was going to be a massive Grand Prix for all of the teams because, traditionally it was always Spain.
Yeah.
Now it was Imola.
Yeah.
All of the new upgrades. Now we go to a Grand Prix where it is such a specific kind of circuit. Are we going to see any kind of change?
Listen, I think the teams have got to go for it. As you said, it was like in days gone by. The track is obviously like everything in Formula One,
Yeah.
but like very aero dependent. I mean, setup is critical in Spain. I think a good indication of where a car's at. So I wouldn't be surprised to see everybody bringing what they've got, and just to time. I think the biggest thing is to time all your restrictive parts that you only have X amount of. That got to time it. But they've got now one less race, which may help a couple of people. Who knows? But look, I think Monaco this weekend. Sorry, just to get back to it. I mean, it's full aero. That's what it's really about.
There we go. Massive downforce, new rear wings, that's all we're going to see. And unfortunately, because things have changed in the world of Formula One, we don't have the traditional Thursday, because today we would be talking about what happened on the track. Now, after a couple of years ago, they've changed it. Now we go back to, we just got a normal weekend. I think it's a bit meh, but we're going to have a little bit of a debate later on about the state of Formula One. But get in touch with us on the WhatsApp, okay? We'll take all of your comments. Coming up, some news. lots of people getting in touch saying hello. Hello, Nikki. Colin says Alonso for the win. We'll get to that. Roland says, how's it as well? First thing, last weekend, I think it was the Qatar Airways Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, which actually just took place at Imola. Terrible devastation in the northern parts of Italy, Gary. And a right call, but a very difficult call it must have been for Formula One to sit there and say, we're not doing it.
Yeah, look, difficult, but I think, as you said, quite rightly so. And I mean, yeah, actually, it's just that this didn't have an option. I mean, at that point in time, you know, you're evacuating and having emergency operations going on. It's just, there's just no ways you can have a Grand Prix, put that many people in one confined space. It was never going to happen. So, listen, it doesn't happen often, but yeah, unfortunately for Imola and everybody else involved, it didn't happen.
Yeah, it didn't happen. I mean, you're seeing just some of the deluge and the water that was there. I must say, I take my hat off to Formula One. Ferrari also donated a lot of money, but also Yuki Tsunoda, because Faenza is just down the road, and there he was sweeping the streets. Saw a picture of him, you know, so everyone just got stuck in to try and help, and it was devastating for everybody, but the right call was made.
Yeah, and without a doubt, and good to see everybody getting stuck in, isn't that what that's about at the end of the day, you know?
All right, a little bit away from the world of Formula One. Our South Africans last weekend, the Nürburgring 24-hour, and it was full on YouTube. I watched most of it, besides when I had the load shedding. Thank you. But that's another story. But our boys just keep on rising to the top. A phenomenal effort from Sheldon van der Linde and his BMW team, finishing in second place, and then a top 10 also for Jordan Pepper and Calvin van der Linde. Gary, these guys are the top of their game, and they are fearless of anybody. And if anything, the European drivers are very fear our boys.
Well, listen, these guys have been quick since they arrived there. You know, they've followed the right channels, they've done the right things, you know, and I think also worked incredibly hard. And I think we all know each other, and you know, we've been around the game a long time, and you know, speaking to family members, and just the guys have really grafted for this. So to be there and to be doing what they're doing is fantastic. But I'll tell you what, Sheldon, I've got to be honest with you, you know, wherever he goes or whatever he drives, whichever race, whatever category, he's near the front.
Unbelievable.
He's never not near the front. So, you know, I think the guy's quite special.
Yeah, very, very special. So well done to the van der Linde boys, and of course to Jordan Pepper as well. Outstanding. However, it must be said that the Ferrari 296 out on its sort of debut in a big 24-hour race, and not even a factory Ferrari, but Fricadelli Racing went on to win the race with a tyre issue as well. So I think this is brilliant for world endurance cars, because Merc going to have to up their game, Porsche going to have to up their game, Lambo going to have to do that. Audi, unfortunately, not going to be there for much longer because they're going into Formula One. But great future in GT racing, Gary.
Listen, it's been a great period for GT racing. I think the best ever. You know, it's given so many drivers an opportunity, teams, what have you, to compete at a high level. You know, the Audi scenario kind of also outlines a lot of what happens, you know, when manufacturers change. Just when it's about Formula One and everything else just, you know, takes a back seat. It's normal. It's cycles, it goes through. But right now the cycle is good, and I think the people that are in it are riding it well. Yes, GT racing is really, you know, it's really been something spectacular over the last 10 years.
And listen, this guy's won, you know. Just by the way, if anybody's looking for a driver here, Gary's still very, very competent.
Too many grey hairs, yeah.
No, you'll be fine. You can get product for that. you at least have got hair, you see? They're a little bit different. Okay, speaking of going, Gary mentioned it, guys going through the right channels to get into racing. The wonderful young Kwanda Mokoena. Now, I've watched this guy since he was in his karting days. He is the endurance champion of South Africa. And he's now just signed to go and race in the series that the van der Lindes Calvin went through in the ADAC GT Master Series, starting the 10th of June. And, you know, this is a great opportunity for this young guy, Gary. He has to take this by the horns and really go for it, because that was the stepping stone for the other guys.
Well, 100%. You know, something Calvin, you know, one of them started it and really, I think, sort of showed everybody that there's another route to becoming a professional driver in Europe and around the world. And I think it's pretty clear that, you know, that the job, you know, he needs to achieve, he knows he needs what to do. It's been done before now. So, yeah, it's just go out there and be fast, really, and look after the car, get the thing to the end. So, listen, all difficult for a young driver, but, I mean, I think the guy's a talented. He's won many karting championships.
Exactly.
So, it's an exciting prospect.
It is, and you know, at Kwanda, go for it. You know,
absolutely.
You've got so much support, but it's up to you now.
That's it.
Okay, good stuff. Hungary has got a brand new circuit, purpose-built track. It is in Ballaton Park. That is what it's called. There it is on your screen. We'll get a close-up of it in a short while. It is custom-built, Gary, but it is not necessarily going to replace the Hungaro ring. They apparently have only asked for a Series 2 license, but they are actually spec'd to actually be Formula 1. But something exciting in Hungary, you know, a country which you sit, I mean, I think you and I both remember watching the first ever Grand Prix behind the Iron
1986,
Curtain.
wasn't
1986.
it? Yeah.
And now all of a sudden Hungary's got a second magnificent Grand Prix. So, you know, if America can have 3, why can't Hungary have 2?
Listen, look, it's just great to see racetracks, you know, in this day and age. I mean, you know, there's always talk about electric cars and not being able to drive internal combustion engine cars in Paris and all these major cities around the world by 2030 or 2035, whatever it is, still building racetracks, which is a good sign for people like us that love a bit of petrol and speed, 100%.
That's why I missed Emilia Romagna. I mean, Imola last week, because I was like, this is the first time since Bahrain that we're actually going to a racetrack.
Well, exactly.
Now, you know, now we're going back to a street circuit, but you know what? It is as it is. There is this unbelievable notion going around the world of Formula One where people have been intimating that, you know, the FIA or Formula One should perhaps change the rules because Red Bull are so dominant. I've never heard such garbage in my life. I mean, we've had this before. We've, you know, those who've been watching for years, we've seen the Williams era. We've seen the McLaren era. We've seen the Ferrari era. We've seen the Renault, Benetton era. We've seen Mercedes. We've seen Red Bull. We've seen Mercedes again, and now we're seeing Red Bull again. Who comes up with the idea that all of a sudden, oh, Gary, you're much faster. Can you do me a favor? Could we cut one of your arms off?
No, listen. I mean, it's an absolute. It's a joke. I mean, you know, to make a car fast, this didn't happen for Red Bull. Now, this has been now years, and we all knew when the new regulation came. They had Adrian Newey there.
That's it.
Who, I mean, is an aerodynamic genius. Okay. You really had to believe that Red Bull were going to into this era on the front foot.
Correct.
Which, like Mercedes did in the last era with the engine.
Yeah.
You know, they had the better engine, and then it set them up for domination, really, like we've never seen actually.
Correct.
But you know, you can't now handicap somebody like Adrian Newey for doing what he's good at because the car's fast. So, you know, listen, there's always it's the normal racing thing at the end of the day. When you're winning, everybody's trying to shoot you down. It's just how it goes.
There we go. Everyone's just got to do better. And perhaps, as you know, also mentioned a little bit earlier, as we get further into the season, all depends on the development upgrades from the other teams. Because Red Bull, yes, don't have that opportunity to use too much, or, you know, more wind tunnel time or whatever, and that will have an effect. Yeah. Even though Adrian Newey still draws everything. Yeah. So maybe it won't have too much of an effect.
Well, they say he can see air.
Listen, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. Mick Schumacher, okay, back in the news. We know that he left Ferrari and he's the third test driver for Mercedes, AMG. But there are already, after 5 races this season only, Gary, rumours of Nick de Vries not cracking it at AlphaTauri. And, of course, Logan Sargent, who's just come in to Williams, did a great job in Formula 2, American driver as well. And people are saying, well, Mick Schumacher, you know, maybe to replace Logan Sargent. Doesn't say next year or this year or whatever it is. I find this very premature.
Yeah, look, it is. I mean, look, the Logan Sargent thing, you've got to give the guy a crack. I mean, he hasn't been, yes, he's been at the back of the grid, but as I said just now, the grid's bunched up a whole lot. You know, there's not a lot of time. But Nick de Vries, I've got to be honest, I've been a bit disappointed. After that Monza result last year, I thought, you know, this guy's a real deal, and that's obviously why AlphaTauri signed him. He just hasn't been able to get it together, so it just hasn't worked out for him. So, but to dump him now, this part of the season would be, I don't know, a little bit tough. You've got to give the guy a chance, but at the end of the day, it's Formula One, and it is. You've got Daniel Ricciardo sitting in the wings at Red Bull. You know, it would be a nice test for Red Bull to actually put him back in a racing car and actually just see where he's actually at. Because I've got to believe that Ricciardo is sort of featuring in the thought process at Red Bull now. Is Checo going to leave? If he leaves, what's going to happen? Who they're going to fill that seat with? It's comfortable for Max to have a guy like that there. You know, you're going to take all these things into consideration. So if De Vries doesn't get it right, I wouldn't be surprised to see Ricciardo in that car.
Yeah, there we go. So the Schumacher, Logan Sargent story, just want to go back to that. And I unfortunately think too many people underestimate the talent of Alexander Albon. This guy is really, really a top-notch driver. He got harshly dealt with at Red Bull, but he's not the first one. We've seen that happen to Gasly. We've seen it happen to Kvyat. We've seen it happen to Bourdais. We've seen it happen to tons and tons of drivers. But Albon, I mean, in that Williams, is just unbelievable. So, when Logan Sargent is only just a couple of tenths off Alex Albon when it comes to qualifying, he might not have the race experience as yet, but, he's not as far off Albon as his predecessor.
No, I think he's done pretty okay. The thing is, I think at the end of the day, you need to be winning the junior formula. You need to be an Oscar Piastri, and I'm diverting away from Logan Sargent, but you've got to have won your Formula 3. You've got to have won your GP2. The Hamiltons, Rosberg,
you know it.
Yeah, those are the guys.
Yeah,
at the end of the day,
Verstappen, Leclerc.
Exactly. He didn't do that.
Yeah.
So I think unless there's a massive financial benefit for the team, and let's be honest, we've got 3 Grand Prix in America as an American driver, the sport's doing whatever it's doing right now. I think there's a little bit more to Logan Sargent's deal than just being quick.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay, listen, couple of comments that have come through here. Big smiles, well-deserved Kwanda. That's from Barry. Nice to hear from you, Barry. And SA winning British Formula 4 for Akil Albai. That's from Colin. Nice one. Thank you for letting us know. Nikki Hardy just quotes Christian Horner. Change your car. There we go. Hamilton to Red Bull alongside Max. And I believe Tsunoda is another driver that is underestimated. Very, very good point. All right. Coming up, huge news and, of course, the rumor mill. Welcome back. Here we are, the LGR F1 Show, coming to you live from our Suzuki Pop-up Store at the Menlyn Shopping Centre. Gary, a couple of weeks ago I was at Samola.
Yep.
And Suzuki had a couple of Suzuki Swift Sports. They didn't ask me to drive one. Thank you. Anyway.
Why not?
I don't know. But I'm just sitting there and saying maybe we should go and put a proposal together and go and do the Samola heel time.
Why not? I mean, I've never been down to the event, and I believe it's amazing.
Suzuki, here's an opportunity. Here we go. Okay, listen, let's move on. The biggest news of the week has got to be what came out yesterday. Aston Martin and Honda. Yes, Honda are back. They left for a couple of seconds, as they did in 2009 with Honda, with BAR. Became BAR. They financed Ross Brawn winning that championship. They left McLaren in a hurry, went to Red Bull. Now they're still supplying Red Bull. And this is the big news. This is what Lawrence Stroll says is the final piece of the jigsaw for Aston Martin. Gary, Lawrence Stroll, yes, we know he's a very, very wealthy man or whatever, but he's taking this very seriously. And now I think, he's saying 2026, we're going to win championships.
There was a time last year when you sort of thought to yourself, Formula One's Formula One. Even Lawrence Stroll's going to... It looked like he was battling a little bit, but the plan was obviously clear in his head, taking major steps forward this year, and now this deal as well. I mean, he's starting to put all the best of everything together now, driver-wise, designer-wise, engine, all the best. We've got the Red Bull designer, but now we have the Mercedes engine. Now you've got a whole lot going on there.
Yeah.
So, listen, this guy obviously hasn't done what he's done in his life for being stupid, that's for sure. And it's actually quite a fascinating story. I mean, the extent that they've gone to, and the Aston Martin road car deal that's gone with this whole thing, the new facility that they've built. I mean, it's actually unbelievable.
It's extraordinary. I mean, it really is. Do yourself a favor, if you haven't looked, just go and search Aston Martin new Formula One facility. It's just ginormous. So, in 2026, Gary, we're going to have Audi. Okay, we're going to have Honda, Aston Martin Honda. We'll have Mercedes-Benz, Renault, and Ferrari. Now all of a sudden we've got 5 manufacturers. And if you think 3 or 4 years ago, we were struggling with 2.5.
Yeah.
So it's amazing how that tide is sort of turned again, the days when we had Toyota and, and those sort of teams. So, and a whole new era of Formula One as well.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's going to be quite exciting.
Yeah, I think so too. You know, there's a time you talk about those days in F1, you're like, Bernie's running the show. The Formula One can't get any better than this, you know. And then things change, and then all of a sudden, it's just Formula One just keeps on doing its thing. It's a machine.
It is an extraordinary machine as well. Now, clearly, and I mentioned it right at the top of the show. Clearly, some people, Gary, sit at home and they maybe get paid £1 a word and get told, you have to produce X amount of words every single day, regardless of what is happening. The problem is when all of a sudden you have a Grand Prix cancelled, like last week in Imola, it's amazing what kind of stories come out. So let's start off on Lewis Hamilton, because this one came out. There we go, Ferrari considering a £40 million contract offer to sign Lewis Hamilton for 2024. Have you ever heard anything? I mean, hey, it's possible. Anything is possible. But I mean, the likelihood of that?
No, I think very unlikely. Yes, I'm looking at Alonso, and George Russell, in fact, has taken the fight to Hamilton straight up.
Fair enough.
So I think he's not, in that sense, he's not Alonso. Alonso's cleaning up. And listen, kudos to him. I mean, it's unbelievable. But, you know, Hamilton's future and with the brand and what he's done with the brand, it would be almost silly now to go and jump into something else for a year or two. It's not going to have the power, you know, or sort of the weight that he's created over those championship-winning years and that with the Mercedes brand. So it would be, you know, yes, it could happen. But, you know, for his future plans and what it's about, I don't think it really fits in.
I don't think it does either. But there's more. I mean, there was so much more. There we go. Potential grid with Ferrari eyeing Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes needing a replacement. I mean, they're on the cusp of signing a new deal, and I'm sure that, you know, at Monaco we always get big surprises. I'm not surprised. I won't be surprised if we hear a new deal about Lewis Hamilton this weekend. And then there's more about Lewis Hamilton because, you know, he all of a sudden he says, no, he's not going to go to Ferrari because he doesn't, and move to one of the F1 rivals in a few years. They say perhaps he'll even go back to McLaren. I mean, where does this, I don't even know why I entertained this on the show, but I thought, you know, we should just bring it out there.
What just shows you the media in some journalists, I mean, some of it's just utter drivel, to be honest with you.
It is. All right, that's a bit of the rumour mill. Do you remember the Miami Grand Prix? It feels like it was last year.
Yeah.
That's how long ago it was. The Miami Grand Prix, there was a tremendous amount of fanfare and the Americanized promotion of Formula One. So I'm going to ask you the question, and then I'm going to ask Gary as well. What did you think of the way everything, the fanfare in Miami? We'll discuss it. Now, here's a little bit of a clip of comments from the Miami Grand Prix, and they'll come up on your screen. There is enough time for you to read them. And thereafterwards, I've got boxing gloves here, and Gary and I are going to have a little box to see who wins as to purists or new wave. Here's Miami.
This is Formula One.
All right, boxing gloves on. It's going to be barefisted. The reason I put that together is just to look at a lot of the comments from the drivers. Lewis saying, love the fanfare. Alonso coming out and saying, hey, if we're going to do it, we should do it everywhere. Good point. Lando Norris saying, none of the drivers actually like it, but we have to go and do this kind of stuff. Then you get Stefano Domenicali, the boss of Formula One, Liberty, the owner of Formula One, saying drivers shouldn't be that selfish. And then you get Gerhard Berger, who says Formula One is a European culture and you shouldn't change it too much. Now, I'll get Gary's take in a moment. Okay. My take is, I sometimes feel that Formula One has lost a little bit of the mystery, a little bit of the allure of these demigods of motor racing. These drivers now, every day they're at a Grand Prix track, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they have to go out onto forums, wave at people, go and sign a million autographs, then get spoken to up and down the grid. I think it's just a little bit too much. And how many autographs do you have to sign until someone's going to get disappointed because they didn't get it and think you're a dick? Okay, that's my issue. But if they're going to do it, then they've got to do it at all of the tracks. There's got to be that massive fanfare. Me, I'm a traditionalist. I prefer it when you got the sneak peek of a driver. When they came out the garage, you went, oh my word, there we go, there's Mika Hakkinen. How cool is that? Whereas nowadays, they're in everybody's face. That's just me. I think a little bit of the mystery has disappeared from Formula One. And the European DNA culture, I think, is very, very important for Formula One going forward. My last point is, prior to Liberty taking over Formula One was still there. For those who are new to Formula One, before Liberty took over, it's incredible. Formula One started back in 1950 with huge audiences, whether it would be at racetracks and, of course, with television. My stand is less fanfare, more mystery, more mystique. What do you think?
So, look, I mean, you go back, accessibility has always been an issue in Formula One.
Yes.
You know, it became very closed. You went from an era of the 60s, 70s, and 80s to a large degree where drivers were accessible. They weren't all locked away, hidden behind PR offices and having PRs hanging all over them and ushering them all over the place, and you just kind of got on with it. So, from that point of view, I think the drivers today have it a little easier. Although the media sort of obligations are probably times 100 sort of thing. But Formula One had tried to crack America for years. Bernie Ecclestone tried to crack America for years in Formula One from the 80s, right through into the 90s, 2000s. They could not crack Formula One. The best they got was maybe Indy. It was the one race a year, and it was okay. But I also looked at it and said, well, what are the Americans going to do with Formula One? I mean, this is like NASCAR and that sort of stuff. This is what.
Okay.
But if you were now a Formula One team owner, or even a driver for that matter, your share price has gone through the roof over the last 5 years. You've made hundreds of millions of pounds if you're a team owner. As a driver, you're worth a hell of a lot more money now. You can go and do deals you could never do before. I mean, they introduced a Netflix thing. They've done so much. So, at the end of the day, yes, maybe a negotiation needs to take place, and I'm happy to go and wave and do my thing, but maybe up the prize money as well. That would be a good thing to do, put a little bit more money in our pockets. So I don't think anybody's going to complain about that. But you've also got to give back to the organization that's put its billions on the line to go and build this business now. And listen, they bought it to increase the share price. That was it, and they've done a job that, far exceeds any of my expectations. It's really been good. So these guys have, as you said, yes, Formula One was still here, absolutely, but they wanted to grow it, they wanted to get it better. It got to a ceiling, and it never went any further than that. These guys have taken it, and they've done that. It's right now. I'll hesitate to say it's probably one of the greatest shows on earth. A Grand Prix. We can look at yes, half the people that were there last week in Miami or whatever it was, probably not really racing people. They're there because it's cool. Yeah. Yes. But the kind of people that were there, because it's a cool place to be. You're talking about the top of the top. I think that on the downside for me right now, I looked at this the other day, the prices of tickets for a Grand Prix are out of control. And if you're a normal guy, just wants to take your kid to go and watch a Grand Prix and stand on the grandstand and have a hamburger or hot dog, that's the guy that's being affected. And I think that's the one thing where they need to try and find the balance here. You cannot get rid of your real hardcore enthusiasts. Because it would have been, as you said, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, and still be standing at the fence. You can't exclude that guy, and I think that's where the risk starts coming in.
Very good points, and I think valid arguments from both sides. Yeah, the commercialization, quite a few people coming in, the epitome of Drive to Survive, Miami, shite. Barry goes traditional, becoming too commercial. So I think there is that fine line of understanding and I think, you know, Gary, you bring up such a valid argument in the sense of it's a business, and that's what they've got to do. They've got to run it as a business. My thing is, you know, with something like Drive to Survive, yes, it brings a younger audience, and all of a sudden they feel much closer to who these people are. What I fear the most, and yes, in the last couple of years, the Romain Grosjean accident was a terrible, terrible accident.
But people like to see that stuff. I mean, it's how it goes.
I know, unfortunately, people do,
Yeah.
but a lot of people, a lot of young, new people in coming into the world of Formula One, I'm not sure understand the risk, the danger that is involved with motor racing. That's my concern, and until another huge tragedy happens, then all of a sudden there's that wake up going, oh my word, I thought it was a game. That's what scares me.
Yeah, look, I think you're right. I think people that haven't been around the sport a lot or haven't grown up with it, I think, yes, that's maybe one of the things. It's just this nice thing to do, and there's this area that the drivers are invincible right now. Safety of the tracks, the safety of the cars, whatever. It's not really the case, as you said. But I just wanted to go back quickly, just 2 steps before the safety aspect and whatever, and people's perceptions. But you know, NASCAR went through the same thing. They had this unbelievable rise in America, where it just went absolutely crazy. NASCAR grew and grew and grew into huge money, and they started changing NASCAR to make it a little bit more understandable for the casual fan, and that's when they started like veering off, because you can't change. You've got to keep the integrity of what it's about. Yes, you can bolt on a show or here and there, but you've got to be careful not to lose
the DNA,
what it actually is.
There we go. Very good point. And I think that's where we both agree. And it's that slope where they've got to try and miss. And it's such a big game that a miss can be detrimental. But I think everyone's got great opinions, and we'll go through that a little bit later. Coming up, it's Monaco. Okay, yes, we are calm now. This weekend it is Monaco. It is so special, and you get so many people say, oh, I hate Monaco, Gary, but they watch it every single year because it is an incredible challenge for the drivers through the very narrow streets, that unlike the street circuits that we have today, Baku, the Russian Grand Prix that we had at Sochi. It's just something magical, and it's Monaco.
It's Monaco, yeah, exactly. It is what it is. But it's going to be quite interesting to see who turns out at Monaco after Miami being our reference point now.
Yes.
And what the makeup, who's going to rock up at Monaco now? So now how do you make yourself bigger? What are you going to do?
That's so true. Who's going to be up and down the grid?
Yeah.
Who are going to be the celebs?
You know, that's
wow.
But from a driving point of view, as you said, it's full on aero. It's I think you've got to just go for it. Bring what you got. Get the cars, stuck to the ground, and qualify well. And we all know Monaco's about qualifying.
Correct.
You've got to be up there. It's difficult to overtake. With these big cars, probably even more difficult to overtake. So let's.
Yeah, we wait.
Let's see.
We wait to see. There we got the Monaco Grand Prix. Charles Leclerc. And by the way, and I've said it before, to David Croft and the Sky reporters, his name is Charles, not Charles.
Yeah.
His name is Charles. We've got Sergio Perez, we've got Fernando Alonso. This weekend, Charles Leclerc, Gary, he's a Monegasque. It seems to be the nemesis of a track for him. When things are going right, all of a sudden things change for him. Do you think that's going to play on his mind?
No, I think you at that level, and I think a driver of his ability and talent, I think that you park that one side, things happen, and you approach it with the entirely clean sheet. As you said, home Grand Prix for him. It's a home Grand Prix for most of these guys. Anyway.
Yeah, most of them.
But listen, he's gone. You know, he's a proper Monegasque. Exactly.
Yeah, he's a proper Monegasque.
He's got a passport. So you know, it's. I hope for his sake that they can get something done this weekend. It'll be great to see. Listen, it's never happened in Formula One. So, you know, we thought we were going to get it a couple of times.
Correct.
He was quick. He was on pole. He crashed. It just didn't, as you said, didn't go his way. So for him, I hope it's going to be a good weekend.
Yeah, I hope so as well. One more point on Charles Leclerc is that he's got his very own special Monegasque cap this week, and you can see the yellow, of course, of the Ferrari, but the white and red, the colours of Monaco. So there we go. That'd be nice to get. Apparently, it's only, I think, $61
limited edition.
Limited edition.
Okay.
There we go, limited edition.
Yeah.
So that's Charles Leclerc. As you can see, I've got my cap. Well, we'll get to, there we go. You see, I've got my cap, which my friend brought back to me from Azerbaijan.
Nice.
There we go. The brand new Charles Leclerc cap. Okay. Imola was cancelled last week. We touched on it. It would have been a race with everyone with upgrades. Gary, Mercedes, we know, and we'll go into some of their upgrades in a short while. They're going to be bringing upgrades to this Grand Prix. Ferrari have said that they are holding off their upgrades until Barcelona, which is next weekend, although they do have a rear wing, a flat rear wing for or very high rear wing for this Grand Prix. I think I agree with you with what you said earlier. I think a lot of the teams have to showcase what they have in order to get some kind of idea what direction they're going.
If it's going to make the car faster and it's going to allow you to qualify further up the grid, you have to take it to Monaco to qualify up the grid. It's all about the Saturday afternoon in Monaco.
Yes.
So to throw away any opportunity, and Sasha, I have to say it, sadly so. Yeah, I don't really trust Ferrari's strategy and thought and planning. They haven't really done. Last year was a disaster. It's been a little bit of a disaster this year as well.
Yeah.
So you know, I think if they've got an opportunity to go fast, they should take it. And there's nothing to. They're on the back foot. They've got to go for it.
Everyone has to.
Yeah.
And that's why I really like. And also we have to be cautious with what we hear. But Mercedes, we've seen the pictures, and here's the first one. They basically ditched that whole flat side of their car, so now they've actually got side pods on the Mercedes, and that's where I really take my hat off to someone like Toto Wolff, because he has come out together with his team and sat there and said, this car is not working. Yes, they're doing very well, but that's not good enough for Toto.
No, of course not.
And Toto basically has said no. So go back, figure it out within the budget cap, and go and fix this car. He says it's not going to be a miracle car this weekend, but they've got to take that step in that direction to see what result it gives them for going forward, Gary. Otherwise, they've got to have a plan C.
Well, that's it. They've got to keep doing stuff. And it's, I mean, what an unusual position for Mercedes to be in. I mean,
Bizarre.
after the era that they had,
Yes.
you know, until the new era now, the last year basically. I mean, they
Cleaned up.
They had it made wherever they went. And this is so unusual. So I think even for them as a team and as an organization to not get their head around this now situation and start chasing and start looking at other teams and seeing what other teams are doing. And it's such an unusual thing for them. But they have to do it, as you said. They've got no choice.
They've got to do it. So Mercedes also, they've got their new air intakes. You can see much bigger than before. And of course, also they've got whole new front suspension, Gary. Whereas Ferrari this week, as far as we can tell or know, I'm sure we'll know more tomorrow, they've gone for a new rear wing, but their rear suspension, they are holding off until the Barcelona Grand Prix. Now, this is a very interesting looking car, and that is McLaren. McLaren have got a special livery for the Monaco Grand Prix. This first picture doesn't really show it too much, but I think when we look at the next pictures, Gary, that what does that remind you of?
Well, you know exactly where that's going, you know, and that just says McLaren of the 80s, basically. That's what it tells you. Maybe a different front end of the car, but the design and just the very simplicity of it. I mean, it's just an iconic design in motor racing.
It just is so special. I think that is going to be something very. I cannot wait to see that on the track tomorrow. The picture over there, of course, View's color is orange, but I think it's got a touch of red to it as well.
Yeah.
So I think it's very special. For those who maybe are sitting and wondering what it's about, just go and look at some of the liveries from the 1980s, late 1980s of McLaren, and that will give you a full-on idea. Okay, our guest has just arrived. Here she is. Not her. There she is. There she is. Sorry, Gary, you don't know.
No, that's okay.
Eva Green just pops into the show every once in a while. She always just wants to come and say hello. Maybe she will be in Monaco. I'm sure she would have been at the Cannes Film Festival. But she always just likes to come and say hello and interrupt the show. Okay, Eva, enough of that. Thank you very, very much. Now, coming up, all you need to know about this weekend, and could it rain on Sunday? The $1 million question this weekend, Gary, is can anybody beat Max or Sergio? They both won at Monaco. Sergio's a street racer, street circuit specialist.
Yeah.
You got to believe that on single lap, there are other cars that are just as quick, but your money's got to be on Red Bull.
It has to be. It has to be. But you know, as you said, we've got 5 races in now at this part of the season. Let's see, maybe whoever takes a gamble on their big upgrade this weekend, it's going to work for them. And as we said, you mentioned it, single lap, if you can get in front in Monaco, you've got a great chance. This could be a very different weekend for us, a very different weekend. Look, Max has had some drama this year, and he started 9th at the last race. Yes, he came through. There's no ways he's going to overtake on a track like this. So it's all about qualifying. So I think it's open season.
I think it's going to be brutal when it comes to qualifying. Not only is it the Monaco Grand Prix weekend, but man, what a Sunday this is going to be. Watch Monaco, relax, and then the Indy 500, which is just crazy. We were talking off air before the show started. We were watching some of the qualifying over the weekend. Gary, the speeds that those cars get going around a track like this, average speed over 380 kilometers an hour, is frightening.
It's unreal. I mean, they've given those cars, just quickly to touch on IndyCar, it's the F1 show, but I mean, more boost for the race this weekend. Cars being faster than ever. It's actually unbelievable. 380 k's an hour between 2 walls. You really sit up and take notes and take your head off to what those guys are doing out there as well.
And those skinny tires.
Yeah, the tires. The cars are not anywhere near as advanced as Formula 1 cars and all the rest of it, but it's still the Indy 500. And I mean, the speeds are just something unbelievable.
I cannot wait. It's going to be a fabulous weekend. So, what can we look forward to? Tires are always important when it comes to the world of Formula 1. But degradation around Monaco is not that severe, Gary. So, I mean, we've seen drivers do 71 out of the 72 laps on one set of tyre. However, the C5 soft tyre qualifying, and we've mentioned qualifying is just what it's all about at Monaco. And if we look at the teams that we've got, yes, we've got Red Bull up there. We know that Ferrari still, with or without their new upgrades, very, very quick over one lap, especially Charles Leclerc. Alonso could be the big surprise. Don't discount the 2 Mercedes boys as well. I mean, they're both very, very quick. And funnily enough, even though they're having a very, very difficult season, and they've admitted that much as well, is McLaren. The reason I say that is because they just have such an unbelievable history at Monaco. And if you want to spring a surprise, I mean, the two drivers there, Lando and Oscar Piastri, I mean, you couldn't want for two more aggressive, hungry young guys.
No, on the driving front, I totally agree with you. And in fact, I'm looking forward to seeing how Piastri goes this weekend.
Yes.
It was the first track that he's been to now since the GP2 days. He hasn't been to any of the other circuits that they've raced at this year. So it'll be interesting to see how he can, use that to his advantage. But yeah, I think probably going to struggle a little bit. But I think the inter-team battle is going to be the thing I'm going to be interested in this weekend. Yeah. But I mean, you basically ran through the whole field there when we said who's got a chance of winning this thing, and that's what I feel the same. It really can go anywhere right now.
It's going to be quite fascinating. We had all of the rain in Emilia-Romagna region of Italy last weekend. Now, I am no weather reporter, and I don't ever want to be, but it all depends on which weather service you go to. Some say that it's going to be 20% chance rain on Sunday, but the service that I use says on Sunday, during the time of the Grand Prix, there is an 73% chance of humidity and an 80% chance of rain. We'll never know until Sunday. If rain comes, it always is. Then it's just down to strategy, Gary, and who gets the luck of getting in first.
Well, exactly. I mean, it's about, not even about, days gone by, you say, oh, this, driver's skilled in the rain, or this car, it doesn't work like anymore. As you said, it's going to be who stops at the right time, gets the right tyres on for the conditions, is going to be in the pound seats.
And of course, Monaco is treacherous. The likelihood of safety cars, Gary, whether it rains or doesn't rain, is something that can happen early on in the race, and it can happen right towards the end. So it's a completely unpredictable race.
Exactly. Just go look at last year's race and the amount of cursing and what have you that went on with the Ferrari team. You've got to get your strategy. You've got to be so on point with your calls. And you said safety cars, and I do believe we're going to have a safety car.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And we'll see.
And you don't want in the first couple of laps. But racing is racing, and anything can happen.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things. The circuit, of course, is predominantly still that original circuit from 1950, Gary, with, of course, new safety changes or whatever. It's magic to watch when you see these cars going at those kind of speeds down those streets. It's just marvelous.
No, look, it's marvelous. And isn't it, and I think we touched on the beginning of the show, we said, people wondered why Formula 1 cars are racing in the streets, but you've got Jeddah, you've got Azerbaijan, all these tracks where the speeds have just gone through the roof, and they're road courses. So it's kind of like giving Monaco a reprieve there. Well, listen, we don't go anywhere near that kind of speed yet, but we've got all the other bells and whistles that go with it.
So the amazing thing is the chairman of the Automobile Club of Monaco, who's been the same chairman since 1971, has come out with something which perplexed me just a little bit. And he said, if Formula One Liberty aren't prepared to negotiate, Monaco could be off the Grand Prix calendar at the end of 2025. And this goes back to what we were talking about. That would be a travesty. I don't think that should ever happen. And this is where I sit and say, be careful, Formula One and Liberty, because that might bite you.
Sasha, the tide will turn. It happens in life with everything. The cycle right now is right at the top. It couldn't be better for everybody involved, and it's great. And if you're part of that wave, listen, good luck to you. You've done well out of it. But as the sort of casual fan has arrived, the casual fan will leave too. And you've got to have your hardcore enthusiast fan base there.
Exactly.
And throwing away Monacos and doing things like I think we're going repeating ourselves basically, but you're removing what Formula One is to people.
Yeah. Very, very good point. And then, of course, when can we watch the Grand Prix this weekend? All of the action starts tomorrow. 1:30 is the first free practice to 2:30, 5 until 6. On Saturday, we've got 12:30 to 1:30, the very important qualifying, 4 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. And then, of course, the race will be on Sunday at 3 p.m. And then we can watch the yachts, the outfits, the who's who of the world of business and entertainment, and that's going to be a good one to see who's actually there. And of course, there's the prince and the princess.
Yeah, of course.
It is special. It is Monaco, Gary.
Yeah, it is Monaco.
Yeah. There we go. That is it for the show. Thank you very much for watching. Thanks to all of the comments that have come through. I will go through them and reply to you. Keep them coming through. Gary, always good to see you, my buddy.
Thanks for having me.
Please come and visit again.
Just invite me. I'm here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And bring Michael along as well.
Yeah.
It's been great to have Michael. We've also got
Thanks.
Sarah, who's here, who's been coming to watch the show in a Ferrari shirt as well. Very, very impressive. To our whole production team, Henk, who's up in the bush doing some rallying, and Fritz for putting everything together as always, and of course the Suzuki team here at the Menlyn Shopping Centre and the Penta Motor Group. Thank you very much. Enjoy the Monaco Grand Prix, the Indy 500 Grand Prix this weekend. Let's go racing.